Welcome to the Mangrove Community, strengthening the community one branch at a time. For more information about the community or how to volunteer, please visit mangrovecommunity.org.
All right. Peace and blessings out there. We're back with another episode of Mangrove Community Presents Reasonable Doubt. And again, we started this because there is it's a lot of reasonable doubt going on right now, especially with our elected officials and things like that. So as we've been talking about everything, we want to make sure that all of our voters are informed this election season. So we want to present the candidates to you and let you know who they are and let them explain for themselves what they stand on, their campaign and things like that. So, and the whole point of this is for them to have a chance to actually erase the reasonable doubt. So with no further ado, we'll go ahead and get started today. I hope you had your chance to vote. It is still early voting season, so make sure you get out and vote. You have until July 10th to cast your early ballot. And then you have July 14th, which is the runoff election. And we have actually one of the incumbents here, Judge Alex Smoots-Thomas. How you doing today?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you. Thank you. So excited to have you here. I know you're excited. I'm pretty sure you've been busy. So first and foremost, we want to thank you for taking out the time to come and speak with us.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, it's been a busy few weeks for me around here. So
Yeah, I'm pretty sure, and still got a lot more work to do.
yep.
So just to get started, we have a lot of new people voting this year. I'm out personally registering people to vote, and there are a lot of new voters. So for people who may not have a clue who you are, let us know who you are. Give us a little bit about your background, career, and let us know about some work you've done in the community.
Okay. Well, again, my name is Alex Smoots Thomas. Well, my friends call me Alex, but everybody else says Alexandra. I have been the judge of the 164th Civil District Court for this is my 12th year. So before I was Judge Alex, let's see, I'm a native Houstonian.
Mhm.
I grew up, actually, my parents still live in my childhood home, which is in Brentwood, very close to Brentwood Baptist,
Okay.
if you're familiar with that neighborhood.
That's what
Um,
Southeast Houston.
yeah,
Okay.
right off Harm Clark.
All right.
That's where I'm from. And while, yeah, I was zoned to Madison and my mom was a public school teacher,
Hmm.
she sent her very precocious child to a private school. So I went to Kincaid. I graduated from Kincaid in the early 90s and
Okay.
went to UT for a few years. Then realized it was time to get smart because I had to go to law school. So I actually came home and graduated from the University of St. Thomas.
Okay.
Um, After that, I went to South Texas College of Law. Um, Somewhere in there, got married the first time, and started working for a big firm right out of school. I've always
Mhm.
been a civil attorney,
Okay.
so I've only, well, I say that. There's been ever little dabblings into criminal, but I've
Mhm.
really only ever worked on civil cases,
Gotcha.
civil litigation. That was sort of my specialty in law school. For those people that know about law school and things you can get there, I was on a moot court team that was nationally ranked, and I
Okay.
have
Cool.
3 national titles. So um, I was born to litigate
Right.
and to be a litigator and to be in the courtroom. And so,
Have a knack
um,
for it.
yeah, it's I guess some people say I have the gift for gab. We'll see. But yeah, I mean, I've been in the courthouse, frankly, since my 5th day of being a lawyer. My first job at a big firm, I was working for an insurance defense section,
Hmm.
and they love to make their little baby attorneys work. So every Monday and Friday, I was at the courthouse having hearings from like moment one of being a lawyer.
Wow.
And
Is
I
that
loved
norm
it.
for someone coming out of law school?
No, actually, I got a lot more experience early on than most baby attorneys get.
Gotcha.
especially baby attorneys at big firms.
Okay.
There
And
aren't.
what was it due to the accolades that you came out with? That
Yeah, that helped. That definitely helped. That was one of the reasons why my boss at the time hired me. He needed somebody who could go to court and do depositions and try cases as quickly as possible. And so that's what I ended up doing. I mean, I tried my first case, and within 6 months of being a lawyer. So I've just always been in the courtroom, always been
gotcha.
in trial. I probably have represented everybody, litigated everything you can think of on the civil side.
Hmm.
At this point now, I really have heard it all.
Gotcha. So what about outside of the courtroom, or maybe you use your platform to help others in that way? What kind of community work do you do? How do you give back?
So a lot of it comes, I mean, thankfully with campaigning as a judge, there's not so much I can do. I can't like talk a whole lot about like how I personally feel about things, like my
Hmm.
personal opinions to any great extent. And we
Right.
can't do that because, would show our, I guess,
You
lack
got to
of,
remain biased.
yeah, we got to remain unbiased. So
Well,
I don't
unbiased. Yeah,
really,
I'm sorry. You're
yeah,
right.
I don't really talk about my personal opinions,
Hmm.
but I like to go to different community events and help where I can.
Hmm.
So lately, with all of this COVID stuff going on, I have been big on giving away masks.
Hmm.
I am blessed that my husband works for a guy that sells masks, and so I get lots of masks that I can hand out to the community. And so that is a lot of what I'm doing right now. I'm for literally since March, every week, I've hosted a food giveaway and a mask giveaway and
Hmm.
supply giveaway um,
Gotcha.
at all kinds of different locations. And now it's spread all over the county. But that's an
Gotcha.
example of some of the things I do.
Hmm.
As far as like in the legal community, I'm really big on giving back to the law students.
Okay.
When I was in law school, frankly, there weren't that many people that looked like me at
Hmm.
school. And certainly the ones that did weren't doing a whole lot of civil litigation either. So I'm really big on helping the students get through school. Every summer, I hire a treasure trove of law students.
Hmm.
And, I make no bones about it. Generally, you have to have some sort of ethnicity about you to get hired.
Right.
And generally, it's a bunch of girls. And I do it on purpose.
Hmm.
They don't get all, Black women don't get a bunch of breaks in the law world. And so I like to give where I can.
Yeah. Given that experience and expertise, that's wonderful. And so we know the position you currently hold. What does that consist of exactly of being a civil judge? What do you preside over exactly?
So I'm a civil district judge.
Hmm.
There's different levels, right? Most
Hmm.
people are used to, see, I'm just mean. I call them ticket pushers, but municipal court judges
Right.
where they're dealing with like your traffic tickets and stuff like that.
Hmm.
They're, kind of at the baseline. And then up from there, every judge has a different level of amounts and controversy that they deal with.
Hmm.
So anywhere from 5,000 in JP up to 200,000 when you're at the county civil courts.
Hmm.
But for me as a state district judge, I hear anything that's $200,000 and up.
Gotcha.
So I deal with big monopoly money, is what I
Hmm.
like to tell people to explain it. Like, that millions and millions of dollars go across my courtroom all the time.
Gotcha.
Um, and the kinds of cases really vary. I mean, it's from your average run of the mill car wreck to some catastrophic wrongful death at a construction site to a
Hmm.
business dispute between multi-million dollar oil companies. It just really runs the gamut.
What about housing,
Yes.
tenant rights, things like that?
So that comes up a little bit. So the tenant rights you normally see down in county court because
Hmm.
of the amounts that are in controversy. That where I see it a lot is I have a property tax docket in my
Hmm.
case in my court. So like if you don't pay your property taxes and Linebarger or whichever firm it is
Hmm.
ends up suing you trying to get payment, then you would end up in front of me.
Gotcha.
And generally for a long time, I ran my own tax docket.
Hmm.
We have these two tax masters that handle the tax cases for the district judges. And my tax master, who is another Black female, handles my cases the way I like, which is, if I get a homeowner who is like, look, dude, I'm trying, please don't take my house right now.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a little more apt to say, you might need a continuance, give you a couple months, figure something out, see if we
Right.
can work something out. To say when I got on the bench, like, this job is all about perspectives, right? It's where you come from, who you are, who you're around, how you live. All of those things color your decision making, right? And when I have discretion, I don't always. I mean, sometimes it's black and white and I have to rule a certain way.
Mm-hmm.
But there are some times where it's a little bit gray, and it's those gray areas where I get to use my discretion the way that I see fit.
Gotcha. And, helping out the common man is great, and it's great to be in that type of position. What, so it's a dollar amount. Are your cases presided by a jury, or do you make the final decisions? How does that come about?
It depends. It's up to the parties, up to the litigants.
Okay.
So if they want a jury, they pay their jury fee and we go from there. If they don't, then I will preside over the case. And I will say during Hurricane Harvey, that happened a little bit more than usual. So a lot of people don't know this, but after Hurricane Harvey, the entire court complex was flooded. So the criminal court building was flooded. The jury assembly room was flooded. Several other buildings were flooded. The civil courts, though, we were not flooded. And so we got a chance to share with our neighbors. And so all the criminal courts came and moved into the civil court building with us.
Right.
So when that happened, I had to share space with my suite mate. So you had two civil courts running out of one courtroom.
Mm-hmm.
You can imagine the crunch for time.
Right.
And so to help, I turned my chambers into another courtroom, set it up with my court reporter and bailiff and everything, and moved furniture around. And I literally set up a second courtroom in my chambers so that I could still continue to work during the times that I didn't have a courtroom.
Right. Because at the end of the day, your job, outside of ruling fairly by the thumb of law or by the Constitution, is making sure that these cases are seen in a timely manner, right, and move, and and they get their due process. Yep. So that's pretty cool that you would make those moves just to open up doors to make sure that process still flows the way it should, and everyone gets their due processes. That's pretty cool. And then so we talked about the type of cases. Is there, so let the people know, so we can vote for you, early voting this week, July 14th. Where are you at? Are you anywhere out campaigning?
So let me give you a little bit of backstory and I'll explain why you probably won't see me at a polling site. You'll see people that I have hired wearing this t-shirt you'll see out there and signs with it. So if you don't already know, last January, so January of 19, I was diagnosed with breast cancer. So I spent about a year and a half. My last treatment was literally the day before lockdown. So in chemo and surgeries and taking care of my health. So I am one of those high risk people. So I really can't be around a whole lot of people. So, this campaign has largely been virtual for me. There's lots of, videos and Zooms like this and all of that. But I really am very high risk because I'm still immunosuppressed from all of the time having chemo. And on top of that, I now fully understand the effects of COVID. I just nursed my husband back to health. He is fully recovered, thank God.
Yep,
but my oldest son has COVID now. So I have been firmly quarantined the last 2 weeks and got 2 weeks ahead of me. So
yeah, definitely makes sense. So you're mainly dependent on your team. So
I am.
Get the word out.
Great team behind me, and they are doing very good works.
Great. And I know we talked about the type of cases you see in light of everything that's going on today do you see civil cases against law enforcement and things like that? Do those type of cases come across your court?
Not really, not to any great, I mean, I'm thinking over the years, I don't think I've had any that would be against law enforcement. No, no,
Gotcha.
not really. That's if people are going after law enforcement, just to give you a little bit of background, like if you want to do a civil rights action against a cop, that's something that would happen on the federal side.
On the federal side.
Yeah, so at the state court level, we don't really deal with that to any great extent. That's more federal.
Gotcha. It's good to know because it's definitely limited information in Houston on, reporting and things like that when it comes to issues with law enforcement. So what area does your district cover? Since you're a state judge, what is it, a geographical boundary, or how could you explain that?
It's a little confusing. So I am the 164th, which only means that I am the 164th court created in Texas.
Gotcha.
So we have the first court ever created in Texas in Houston. That's the 11th.
Gotcha.
So the 11th District Court is the very first court ever created in Texas. And so the number is just based on when the court was created. So my court was created in the 50s. I am the 4th judge of this court, the 3rd woman in a row, and the 1st Black woman. But my court, my boundary really is just Harris County. So I basically have dual employment, dual citizenship, if you will, almost. The state of Texas is one of my employers, and then Harris County is the other. So, gotcha. But anybody who lives in Harris County can vote for me. There's no restriction other than got to be in the county.
Okay. And so that leads me to the next question. Why should we vote for you? What exactly are you running for? What should the people know about you that separates you from other candidates?
I think the great thing that's so important, and I think we're all learning it the hard way at the federal side, is experience. I mean, you've just got to have somebody on these benches with experience. And not only do I have law world experience from before my time on the bench, but I've been on the bench 12 years. I mean, I know this court system backwards and forwards, and having that kind of institutional knowledge is just invaluable. It really is. So I think that's something that sets me apart. I think the other thing that sets me apart, like I said earlier, is just the perspective, my ability to adapt in times of adversity, my ability to stay efficient in times of adversity. I mean, for me, yes, this is technically a job, but it's a passion of mine to serve. And this is my way of serving the community. And so I hold it at high regard. And so for me, it's about making sure that my litigants get their day in court. I mean, if you have a case in my court, I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that you're heard. And frankly, access is one of the things that's so vital to all of us right now. And so I'm big on that.
And I know a lot of people, when they talk about running, they run for change of some sort. Is that something that's a part of your campaign? Do you see anything that needs to change from the inside, maybe the outside? We've had judges like Judge Jordan that stood up and testified against his own peers because he thought that there needed to be change in the bail reform. Is it anything that you try to, that's what you work on as you're presiding as a judge, as much as you can in that capacity?
We don't have issues on the civil side that are quite as sexy as the whole bail reform thing, to be honest. I mean, lots of people would tell you my side of the law is pretty boring. I don't think it's boring. And I definitely have had some noteworthy cases that aren't boring by any stretch of the imagination over the years. But
because these are people's lives that you're dealing with, and they've been wronged in some type of way. And a lot of times it's financially, emotionally, physically, so it's important.
I always say part of my job is being everybody's counselor and advisor to some extent, to the best ability that I can.
Gotcha.
And so much that there's only so much I can do as I wear the robe, but really it's about helping people. And for a lot of people, the help that they need is just being heard.
Mm-hmm.
And so, in the past, I've had to do lots of internal struggling and fighting about buildings. And now the civil courts and criminal courts are separated again. So some of the headache of that is finally over. And people can return to the courthouse and get justice in a more timely manner. And so
Right.
I'm really excited by that.
Mm-hmm. I have a question. When I was doing research, I noticed back in 2008, I think it was around the time you first took office, you
Mhm.
put an initiative out, and you're kind of known for taking a major part in what was going on in Haverstock Hill apartments with the
Yep.
gang Nuisance and things like that. What did that consist of exactly?
So the gang nuisance cases, the very first one was Haverstock. I'd never even heard of such a thing
Mm-hmm.
before it landed in my court. And now I'm kind of the go-to person on those gang nuisance things. So the concept really came out of LA. It's something they used with gangs in LA because they had a huge issue with gang crime, and they would ban gang members from certain areas of town.
Mm-hmm.
Where it gets dicey is that towards the end of its use in LA, they would try and ban gang members from the entire town, and that constitutionally you really can't get away with that.
Mm-hmm.
But the thing about Haverstock, that there are so many lessons out of that case, and I don't think we've done another gang nuisance case like that one. We've tried to replicate.
Mm-hmm.
Not me. I mean, it's not my bag. It's the county attorney that brings these. I have no control over what he brings, how he brings it, or any of that.
Mm-hmm.
But the county attorney is the one that files those things. And
Gotcha.
when the first one landed in my court, because of some of the security concerns, I just took it on as my thing and didn't really want to put anybody else through the security hassle that
Mm-hmm.
goes with taking on those cases. And so I just kept them. But the Haverstock one I was particularly proud of because to some extent at the time it worked. Now
Mm-hmm.
everything dissipates over time, but when they approached me with it, I was screaming up and down like everybody else. Like, how do you ban people?
Mm-hmm.
And I get like, closing down a building where gang people are hanging out, or like closing down a business that's catering to gang members and like helping them out and all that good stuff. I get that concept, and that is part of this nuisance law. That is something that we can do on the civil side. But the concept of banning people from areas of town was completely foreign to me.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not going to lie, I was pretty skittish about it at first. I was really skittish because, on the civil side, we don't give away lawyers.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So on the criminal side, you can get a public defender, they'll represent you, all that good stuff. On the civil side, we don't do that. So I had all these, we call them pro se, but people representing themselves,
Mm-hmm.
the handful of gang members that actually showed up trying to fight to stay at Haverstock. Um, in the end, I mean, I did a 4-day bench trial
Mm-hmm.
over the original gang nuisance injunction. But I ended up signing it, and I banned, I think that one was like 30 gang members that were banned, one of which actually showed up, tried to testify. He tried to help us plead his case. And, what people don't understand on the civil side is you can represent yourself in my
Mm-hmm.
courtroom, but I'm going to treat you like you're a lawyer who went to law school and that you know all the rules, laws, procedures, because the law says I have to do that.
Mm-hmm.
So I couldn't cut him any breaks, and he did the best he could.
Right.
Um,
So my question to that, because you said it was a lot of lessons learned, was there any data that came from that showed that it was an actual success? And then what other lessons would you say were learned from that whole thing?
um, so the original Haverstock injunction absolutely was a success.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, crime went down. They were having calls, police calls, literally every 5 minutes. I mean, the number of calls to the police from just that complex alone was staggering. I just couldn't even fathom. The one story that was just so troubling that came out of there's a elementary school that backs up to the Haverstock apartments, and there's like a little gate that you walk through to get to school.
Right.
The gang members were stopping the kids from getting to school. And then the ones that were going to school, some of them had already been jumped into the gangs. And so, the teachers and the law enforcement told this story that just really broke my heart, that one day, very close to when they filed the injunction, there was a huge fight at the school, at the elementary school, between the kids, and that the kids, once they broke them up, were standing in gang formation. And I just was like, they're elementary school kids. That's insane. But that's what was happening. And, when you listen to the parents that lived there, they were afraid to send their kids to school. And that's just not right.
Right.
And so after that first injunction, kids were back in school. Crime went way down in that complex. But that injunction was, these people could not live in this complex. It was very limited as to where they couldn't be, if that makes sense. The lesson learned from some of the ones that came after is that sometimes they would try to bite off more than they could chew. So it was like, let me ban you from all of Acres Home. Well, that's a little much. You can't really, it's hard to enforce. It's hard to police. You don't know what good you're really doing. So it's interesting. And then you've got people who are like, this, all they have is their grandmother's house in Acres Home. And if they're trying to start over, where are they going to start over when that's all they have? And so questions like that started to come up as these went on. And finally, the county attorney stopped the practice of banning gang members and instead switched to what I think is frankly, more of a help to the community, targeting apartment complexes where, you've got landlords that are just not policing, that are not keeping their residents safe, that aren't keeping up facilities for their residents, that have really let them go to disrepair and basically go into the hands of like gang control. And so dealing with those apartment complexes, I think was a little more rewarding, in line with how the first Haverstock was.
All right. So a question I have, and maybe this was done and you didn't mention it, but if not, definitely a suggestion. And don't get me wrong, I'm all for these type of initiatives because I'm against violence. I think that children should be able to go to school freely. I think that people should be able to go to stores and things like that, not be hassled at the stores. I get it. But at the end of the day, I also come from a place where I went to school with a lot of these guys that lived in Haverstock. And I'm not trying to justify anything in any type of way, but at the end of the day, I still see these people as humans. I was that guy that would try to talk to them and say, hey, why don't we try something different? But at the same time, I didn't have any resources or anything to give them. So when we run these type of programs, do we think about anything on the back end to provide resources for those who, like you said, there were students in school who got in gang formation. So they obviously have been conditioned and taught that. And there are grown men that were conditioned and taught that way. And I'm pretty sure the choice was presented and they didn't make the choice to do something different. But hey, we should have an out. And even for those children who experience those things, counseling and resources for them to show them that there's a different way of life. Did anything result like that?
Yes. So the last one, we had one in there that got very controversial because a lot of the criminal attorneys kind of picked up on it and said, no, we're going to represent these guys so that this doesn't just happen to them. And which frankly, I really appreciated. Now, they struggled in civil court because we're a little bit different from criminal, but some of them did fabulously. And I was happy to see that some of the gang members were represented because I did kind of feel like it was very targeted. Like the only gangs they went after were black gangs. It was always black gang members that were part of these nuisance cases. And I'm like, Now, I may not know much about gang formation, violence, tattoos, or any of that stuff, but pretty sure that there's more than just black people that are in gangs.
Hmm.
And why is it that's the only gangs that I see you guys bring in front of me?
Yeah.
So, thankfully, those lawyers came forward and helped those guys out because it was very, yeah, disproportionate. It didn't
Hmm.
make a lot of sense.
It was
So,
it it was a horrible time for that area, to be honest with you. I
yeah,
understand because it was blanketed. Um, I got stopped all the time, and where you going? And I'm like, why do you have the right to stop me here? Because we've labeled this as a high crime area, so we can
mhm.
stop whoever we want, whenever we want, no probable cause or anything. And for
Now,
the
I will say my order did not
Mhm,
allow that.
gotcha.
That's something that cops were just doing. My
Mm,
order literally was specific to those 33 guys and
mm,
nobody else.
gotcha. Well, yeah, we definitely want to take a look at that. But
Yeah.
and
Oh, so
I
I'm
guess that's why we're here where we're at today, with the climate that we're at. And
yeah.
again, I'm not here to paint all police officers bad, but that was definitely going on at that time.
It
Definitely.
was, and I will say some of the officers that handle those gang cases, I mean, some were good and some were bad. It's just like every cop. I mean, not all cops are horrible. Some are horrific.
Hmm.
You just never know what you get. We did one, the last one that I can remember, that was an apartment complex or low income housing,
Hmm.
area was in South Union. And, we actually when I appointed a receiver, so I started when they gave me apartment complexes or business,
Hmm.
I would appoint a receiver to go in there and basically help them redo it, help them revitalize, something other than crime, some way to make money, some way to get jobs and resources. And so I had a couple of receivers that were very good about bringing in job fair people and bringing in resources so that they could do better and be better
Hmm.
without having to have this very coercive, restrictive, um, um, order placed on them.
Gotcha.
So I, that's something that was, important to me because, and I picked that receiver specifically because I knew he would do something good
Hmm.
to bring the community back rather than just keep it down.
Right. Yeah, I definitely you know, I know organizations and people that would love to partner um, with the county, if any way possible, to catch those people on the back end who just need a way out, who need a hand up, and we have those resources and opportunities. So we would love to get together with you on that if it's possible at all. Um, I just feel we need to be well rounded with everything that we do and community oriented, and those people who, when all the resources are in place, and let's be honest, right now in certain communities they are not there whatsoever.
No.
But when all the resources are in place and you choose to do what you do, then hey, God bless you, God be with you, and I can pray for you. But
And I
that.
think a lot of the guys that were involved, some of
Hmm.
them really just needed a hand up. I mean,
Right.
I remember I had one who came by himself. He was in round two of Haverstock and
Hmm.
he had just gotten out of prison. He was working for, in somebody's mechanic shop, but not really for the shop, just like working on cars.
Hmm.
He had one room in an apartment at Haverstock, is what
Hmm.
he was renting. One
Hmm.
room, and he was there with his daughter who was in lower school or elementary school. I
Hmm.
think she was like a second grader, first or second grader.
Hmm.
Her daughter's mother had been killed in some gang violence. He was the only provider, and the county wanted to ban him from, frankly, the sidewalk in front of her school. Like their boundary line banned him from everything. And I'm like, wait a second. I understand that, he's paid his debt to society. I understand he's up on other charges, but he's actually trying to do the right thing. He's got a
Hmm.
job, he's got a daughter to care for, and nobody else is going to do it if the mother's gone. And you want me to ban him?
Right.
Like, let's think about that for a second, guys. And so I didn't end up. I did a big carve out, and basically he was just banned from the gang members across the complex from it.
Gotcha. So it
So it
was a
was a really,
workaround.
I did a workaround because I wanted him to be able to go to work and get his
Mhm.
daughter to school and give him a chance. I mean,
Right.
these people coming out of prison need a chance, and that's what I tried to give him.
Mm. So we talked about COVID, and we definitely keep your family in our prayers.
Thank you.
Um, how are the courts presiding with COVID now? How is that going?
So all the courts essentially are working off Zoom and telephonic hearings,
Hmm.
and the governor has stopped the ability to have jury trials. Right now, I think the ban on jury trials is until September 1st,
Hmm.
but they're putting in place ways that we can pick juries after in the fall once we can congregate again. But I'm going to tell you, getting a jury trial is going to be difficult on the civil side. There are many people on the criminal side that have been waiting for trial through
Hmm.
this whole COVID madness. And so we generally, our position has been on the civil side when we have big stoppage of jury trials like we do right now, we
Hmm.
let the criminal side go first
Gotcha. So
because
you pull from the same jury pool.
we pull from the same jury pool. And while yes, we're dealing with millions of dollars, there are people in jail. They need their day in court.
Hmm.
So we try to usually let the criminal side have a little more time before we really ramp it up. I don't think you'll see a whole lot of jury trials on the civil side.
Hmm.
Probably not till the first of the year, to be perfectly honest.
All right. And I know this is talked about more on the criminal side, but and speak on this as much as you possibly can in respect to your position. But there are a lot of people that feel um, blacks and minorities are treated unfairly, or rulings are unfairly or different than their white counterparts and things like that for the same crime, same similar type crimes and things like that. What would be your comments or thoughts on that, if anything?
I think it's important you look up who you're voting for, to be honest. I mean,
Hmm.
the landscape of the courthouse has changed so much, even since I've been there.
Hmm.
When I started on the bench, there were four of us on the state district side, so felony um, criminal cases, and then us on the civil side. There were four,
Hmm.
and now, I mean, we're all over the place. So I think you'll see a change in the treatment
Hmm.
of us in the courthouse. Um, but it's taken a long time to get to that change.
Right. And then only so much of that is in your power and control if they decide to go with a jury, right?
Oh, we have zero control if they go with a jury. I mean,
Exactly.
barring some major jury misconduct, which doesn't happen very often.
Hmm.
I mean, most judges that you'll see down there, whatever the jury said is what you get.
Right, because it's hard to prove. So with that being said, I'm just trying to get people to see that instead of trying to figure out a way to get out of that jury duty,
Oh,
I think it's important that we do our
crucial.
duty and we try to find every excuse to show up, because you could be that deciding factor on someone's life getting thrown away, because people may not be thinking logically, may be thinking with their emotions or blinded by race and discrimination. You can be that voice in the room. So it's important that we play our role. We have judges that are steady getting elected that are going to ensure that they see things fairly, constitutionally, but then we also have to play our part. And that's the part that, we're trying to drive home, is that we have to play our part. Educate yourself, vote, and then hold your elected officials accountable and make sure they're doing what they said they were going to do. So with that being said, we love having you on, but just know we will keep our eye on you, because
No problem. I'm not afraid of that.
yeah, and we're definitely serious about the community and making sure that people are treating the community fairly. So we do appreciate everything you do. Just some questions that were thrown out there, and these may fall in your realm, they may not. But in civil cases, like when your everyday citizen goes up against corporations and landlords and things like that, those cases seem so hard for the common man to win, even if they have all of the evidence to go in their favor. Um, is that something you see in your courts, or?
I do see it, but I actually, I did notice a shift. So when I first got on the bench, definitely corporations were getting,
Mm-hmm.
their day in court, and the poor little guys weren't getting anything.
All right.
But I've noticed a shift over time where the people that I have on juries, they're sick of corporations. And in
Mm-hmm.
fact, they'll scream it to the mountaintops how they're not trying to get big, big rich companies to be even richer. They're not interested.
Mm-hmm.
They're interested in helping the little guy. Um, but a lot of that is all in, frankly, your representation. And so if I could drive any point home, it's that we as a community need to put more of us on the civil side.
Mm-hmm.
We need to use what's available to us
Mm-hmm.
because the other people, the other communities, they use the civil court to their advantage. I
Mm-hmm.
don't think that we as a community ever have,
Mm-hmm.
and we really should.
Okay.
I can take your house before anybody else can.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to be mindful of who you have there, who's representing you. I mean, if it's up to me, not only, I mean, it's great we have lots more Black judges, we
Mm-hmm.
need more Black lawyers that are practicing on the civil side too, that are looking out for our rights on the civil side.
Mm-hmm.
And, I can't tell you how many people I run into. They're like, oh, I see those people get money from car wrecks, but I don't want to fool with it. And it's because we don't have enough representation and we just need to be more vocal and use our resources more.
Mm-hmm. I have a I have an example I want to give you, um, and it kind of speaks against what you're saying, and I promise I'm not doing this purposely. It's just, but there's actually a judge right now in Harris County, and we'll speak on this later down the line. So I'm not gonna put any names out there right now, but there's a case in her court, and it's a tenant landlord case where the tenant has so much evidence. I sat with them for hours going through the evidence of mold in their apartment. And he went further to get with neighbors and speak with them, and they're having the same issues to where people are developing lung disease and people with minor issues are becoming major issues, and they're on dialysis now and things like that. And this case has been in court for 2 years. And 2 weeks before the last court date, the lawyer just dropped out. And like, to me, that was unheard of. And I don't know what would cause something like that to happen. Why would a lawyer walk away from what I see to be a slam dunk case, even though I'm no lawyer? But, you had inspection people come in and say this is unlivable. They had to be moved out and things like that. Um, and this goes to something else. And again, I'm just speaking now. You can chime in where you're able to. But again, there's a question of a prominent person in that particular community that funds a lot of campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
And that's why a lot of people are walking away from this case. And if that is found out to be true, that's horrible. And what would you, how would you, if you could advise a person to get their case heard like this?
Um, I will say this. So I can't speak to that case
Mm-hmm.
or that judge or whoever that prominent person is.
Mm-hmm.
But number one, education, education, education.
Mm-hmm.
People succeed in the civil side because they've done the better homework and they've gotten all the possible background and they've done all the possible research. And the ones that don't do that are the ones that I think don't succeed as much on the civil side. So it's really about educating yourself,
Mm-hmm.
knowing, who are the right people to be in that court and who aren't,
Right.
the right arguments. I will tell you, there's always been a schism, if you will, between the science and reality
Mm-hmm.
behind mold and what it does to people and the health restrict. There's always been an issue.
Mm-hmm.
Frankly, for that issue, I know money talks. Whoever can pay for the better expert, that's the one that gets it. So it's, it's all, this is a bad pun, but it's all about the Benjamins sometimes. But part of that is educating yourself and knowing that. I mean, I every chance I get to educate people about how and what to do in civil court, I do, because it can be a powerful tool that works for you, or it can be a powerful tool that will work hard against you.
Mm-hmm. And they say knowledge is power. I guess it takes a lot of it to
Yeah.
combat the dollar in this day and age. And that honestly breaks my heart. And I just wish it wasn't that way. And I feel like that's what the whole bail reform thing was about, is to take the money out of it, out of the equation. And I wish that's something that can just be done across the board in the judicial system, because, I know, and we all know that, like you say, money does talk, and not necessarily paying judges and things like that. But if you can buy the better experts they can talk a little smoother. So
when you buy the better lawyer,
uh,
you get what you pay for,
right.
and it's unfortunate that that's the case. But
Mm-hmm.
now, that's not to say, let me just say this. I have seen time and time again these small solo attorney with little experience club some experienced, very rich lawyer. It does happen, okay?
Yeah.
It's not a fantasy. It really does happen. But if you're looking at just sheer numbers, what happens the majority of the time,
Mm-hmm.
that is a lot of it.
Gotcha. Hey, well, again, I thank you so much for coming on. Where can people get in touch with you on social media? Where can they find you?
So I'm on Instagram, Judge
Mm-hmm.
Smoots Thomas 164th. I'm on Facebook, um, and I have a website, judgesmootsthomas.com.
Gotcha. Well, thank you so much. And again, I'm gonna tell you all to do your research. Continue to do your research. Also, when doing your research, pay attention to timing of things, especially during election years. Um, and continue to be an educated and informed voter. Again, we're bringing the candidate straight to you, and we're letting them speak directly to you so you can make that informed decision. But again, continue to do your research, look a little bit deeper, and really make that decision. Does this person stand for you? And, with this incumbent, with her being in office, you can actually look up her history and see what she's done thus far. So you definitely want to do that research, and make the best decision. Continue to get out and vote to July 10th, early voting. July 14th is runoff election day. Looking forward to it. Let's keep the momentum going. Hey, y'all stay tuned in. We still got more candidates coming your way this week. Again, thank you so much, Judge Alex. Look forward to seeing you in the future, and the best of luck to you, and God bless you and your family. All right, y'all. And again, we end it every night, and we tell you that passion, that thing that's burning inside, pursue it. And don't wait another second. Get up off your butt and go pursue it. That's your God-given purpose. And you won't be happy. You won't be at peace. You won't find that joy until you stand in your purpose. So y'all be blessed. Y'all have a beautiful evening. Good night.